Video is optional for you to use. It is certainly a good strategy if you understand how squared facts work from the first two videos of the Squared Facts Math Facts series. And so this will be Squared Facts Part 3. And this video will teach you essentially how to use how to figure out facts such as 4 times 6, what that equals, by using what you know about squares. So let's get into that piece of our video. And just a quick reminder that our squares, our answers are right here up on the screen. A couple ways that we talked about remembering some of these over here. 6 times 6 has 3 and a 6, 3 sixes in the problem, in the fact. 7 times 7, put them in a straight line. 7 times 7 is 49. 8 times 8 fell on the floor, picked it up, had 64. So those are a couple of rhyme strategies and things that we use, and visual strategies to help you remember those facts. And so once you have those known, we can think about 6 times 8. And 6 times 8 is typically a problem that kids have a tough time doing and understanding, and I want to use my knowledge of squares to figure this out. So again, like in the previous videos, I can use 6 times 6 using that square information to figure out what we have here. And if you think about this here, I'm going to essentially be covering up these other two rows is what I'm going to be doing to start off. But I can't completely forget about those after I figure out my square. I've got to bring that 6 back in here. And of course, when I bring that one back in here, I have 42. And then you have to remember that, well, there's another column here that I need to bring in, which means I need to bring in another 6. And so when I do that, I get the answer of 48. So 6 times 8 equals 48, which is the same as 6 times 6 plus another 6. And our array here shows us that we have the 6 times 6 inside the square, and then we have one 6 here and another set of 6 there, is what we added to our 36. Let's try that with another problem. You can do it with problems that are even further away, that even have more columns. So 6 times 9, for example. Well, again, I'm going to take my knowledge of the square. So the square, of course, in this case is, 36. So 6 times 6 is 36. And we're going to temporarily, if you recall, cover these up, or just not think about those in order to figure out that square. And then, one at a time, we need to bring those 6 back in here. So we have 36 plus 6, and we mentioned on the previous slide that that's going to be 42. And then we have another 6, so I'll bring that one in here. And so that one's going to be 48, which we saw as well on that previous slide. And then remember, we have one more 6 that we need to add to this. And so when you do that, this is going to be 14, carry that 1, 54. So 6 times 9 is 54. And that's a way that you can figure out that math fact. So it's a very similar process to the previous page, where I do my square, and then I figure out what the next columns, the remaining columns, are going to have that I have to add to my squared fact. Do the same thing here. So let's try it on this one. 7 times 9. What are we going to use our knowledge of? What square fact are we going to use? Yes, we're going to use 7 times 7. And while we're figuring that out, of course, we are kind of forgetting about, temporarily, these two extra sets of 7. So the first thing I have is 7 times 7. Remember that one? Put them in a line. 7 times 7 is 49. Very good. Now, we're not done because we still have these other two columns we have to bring in here. So 49 plus 7 is going to be 16 and a 5, so 56, but we're not done, remember, because we still have one more column, so that means we need to bring in one more 7. And so now 6 plus 7 is 13. 1 and 5 is 63, and that is the answer to our problem here of 7 times 9 equals 63. So let's look at this with rules. So the first rule, make the problem a square fact close to the original problem. We did that. So 6 times 6 equals 36. After you figure out the square, add the remaining columns. I have 2 more sets of 6 here, don't I? So I need to add 6, and then I need to add 6 more. Well, if you wanted to do a little shortcut, you know that 6 plus 6 already equals 12, so I could just simply do plus 12, right? Because there are 12 here. 2 times 6 is 12. So this is kind of like that breakdown facts strategy that we used in previous videos on the arrays. So here we go again. Make the problem a square fact close to the original problem. So we're trying to figure out 6 times 9. So the square is 6 times 6, and that of course equals 36. Put the columns together first before you add the square fact. That essentially means if I look at these 3 columns that are remaining, oh, I've got 3 times 6. Well, I know 3 times 6 is 18. Another way to think about it is 6 plus 6 plus 6. But instead of doing that all on here, I'm going to combine all those 6's together, and I'm going to have 18, and I'm going to add that 18 to the 36, and I'm going to get 14, 3, 4, 5, so 54. And yes, 6 times 9 equals 54. Let's go to this one. Same thing. Here are 2 rules. Make the problem a square fact close to the original problem. So we're going to use 7 times 7. 7 times 7 equals what? 7 times 7 in a straight line, 7 times 7 is 49. So that's just the square. Now remember, we have these other 2 columns that we still have to put in there. So I could put 49 plus 7 plus another 7, and that works. But maybe just a little shortcut that I want to do, because I know that 7 plus 7 is 14. I'm just going to jump right to the 14, and then I'm going to go ahead and add, make that 13, 63, and that is the answer for 7 times 9, is that equals 63. Well, I hope that makes sense to you. And again, looking at the shortcuts here, I think about 6 times 6. What's 6 times 6 going to be? Yep, that's right. It's going to equal 36. And then look at this. I have essentially 2 sets difference, because 8 minus 6 is 2. So really what I'm doing here is figuring out, well, 6 times 2. In other words, 6 plus 6. And there's my 12, because that's what 6 plus 6 equals. That's what we're missing from the original problem. And when I do this, I get 48. And that's what 6 times 8 equals, is 48. Looking at our next one here, 7 times 9. 7 times 9, we're going to use a square. What's the square that we're going to use? Yep, we're going to use 7 times 7, which is 49. And we still have 2 columns left, because you can tell the difference between the 9 and the 7 is 2. So 2 columns of 7 would be 14, wouldn't it? 2 columns of 7 would be 14. And then I go ahead and add that up. I get 13, 4, 5, 6, 63. And that's our answer there. And I think we're on our last one here. 6 times 9. What are we going to use for the square? That's right, we want to use 6 times 6, which equals 36. And the difference between the columns here that I used, 9 and 6, what's the difference? Yeah, 3. So I have 3 sets of 6, or 3 columns of 6 that I'm still needing to put in here. And 3 columns of 6 would be 18. And when I add that up, I get 14, 4, 5, 54. And that's what the answer to 6 times 9 is. So if you recall that the rules essentially here are make the problem a square fact close to the original problem, and then put those columns, those extra columns together first before you add to the square fact. And then when you add the extra columns to the square fact, you're going to get your original problem's answer. I hope this helps. I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't, you are welcome to go look at it again. Good luck in your work on math facts, and keep looking for those strategies that work for you. Again, if this is a strategy that doesn't make sense, or just you don't get it, then let's move on to a different one. Sound good? All right. Good luck in your work. This concludes this video tutorial on squared facts video part 3.